Hello and welcome to the iBiomed Tissue and Genetic Engineering Lab. In this video, we will go over lab safety and general orientation. As you enter the lab, please make note of the orange door directly adjacent to our lab door. This door leads to a stairwell which will be our emergency egress route in the event of an emergency such as a fire. In the event of a call for evacuation, we will meet outside the Ewart Angus Center, which is in front of the Health Sciences Library for a head count. Please ensure that you are dressed appropriately for the lab. This includes wearing closed-toed shoes and long pants. Also, please make sure that any long hair is tied back and that you remove any jewelry before entering. Appropriate PPE is essential for our activities in the lab. PPE includes the use of a lab coat and goggles, which you will bring from home, and nitrile gloves, which will be provided to you. Before we get started, let's talk about some safety features. On the lab door, you can find a lab map, emergency contact information, and a list of the hospital emergency codes. You can also find a QR code that links to our lab safety portal, which contains all of our SOP and SDS documents. We also store all of our flammable chemicals in a specific cabinet known as the Flammables cabinet. This includes ethanol. Please take good note of the safety signage that you find around the lab. These correspond to various pieces of equipment that have hazards associated with them. In this case, we're looking at a heating block where we heat some of our tubes, and we have a biohazard warning and a heat hazard warning. We will be producing a lot of hazardous waste throughout the year, and as such, we need a system to segregate this waste so that it is properly processed downstream. The segregation of liquid waste will vary depending on the lab that we have that day. In some labs, you will see designated waste containers for specific chemicals, such as methylene blue in this lab, and in other labs you'll see dedicated waste containers for biohazardous waste, such as cell culture waste that you'll see in Wet Lab 2 and 3. Please be sure to throw out your liquid waste in the appropriate pooled liquid waste container at the end of your lab period. There will also be a dedicated waste container for so-called sharps waste, where you will discard all of your micropipette tips. Please be sure not to mix these micropipette tips inside of the general biosafety waste. Directly adjacent to our first aid kit station, you can also find our emergency telephone along with the emergency security extension, which is 5555 in the hospital. On the same bench, you can find hard copies of our SDS and SOP documents for your reference. You can also find a biological spill kit and a chemical spill kit directly underneath the same bench. The emergency shower is used in the event that you have a large chemical spill on your person. And likewise, the eye wash station is used in case you get chemicals in your eyes. Before coming to the lab for the first time, please be sure to review the lab safety rules in your lab manual. This will be considered assumed knowledge on your first lab day. Please note that the use of personal electronics, including cell phones, is not allowed in the lab unless specifically necessitated by the protocol. After completing your work in the wet lab, you should spray down your workstation with 70% ethanol and wipe it using either a paper towel or a Kim wipe.